Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Qdabra Forms training. We are on day 2. So I'm very happy to have you here again joining us today. So I'm Joanne, and with me is Yesha. She's also um, co-hosting me in this training. So welcome. To start off, we'd like to do a review of what we did yesterday. So yesterday, our topic is key steps to using Qdabra Forms. In Lab 1, we introduced you to installing Forms Viewer from scratch and also introduced you to the latest addition to our apps, which is the Forms Beta app, which we just launched last month. So we showed you how to install Forms Beta from scratch, and we also showed you the basics on how to use the Forms Designer in the browser, which is this uh, replacement for Infopath that we've been developing in the past. So we showed you how you can quickly jumpstart in adding controls to the form by using the tools that are the features that we currently support in Forms Designer. So that's Lab 1. In Lab 2, we showed you how to make your data connections dynamic. And this is really important when you're doing migrations from one environment to another. If you have a lot of data connections, you don't need to manually update those data connections from Infopath. So by just using the Dynamics Data Connections XTP, you'll be able to change the URLs dynamically. So yeah, we're just configuring that XTP. So I hope you were able to follow that lab along and were able to implement that in your own form templates. Then in Lab 3, Yesha showed you how to add the get user information in your forms using the get user profile XTP. In the previous training, we're not using an XTP for this, but in this training, we're providing you uh, uh, an easy way to implement this to your forms by developing this XTP. So yeah, and then Lab 4 is submitting data to SharePoint lists. This has been like a favorite topic in our trainings in the previous years because submitting data to SharePoint is really very common. And we've included that in day 1 because we have this new feature for submitting attachments to lists, and that's what Yesha showed you. She showed you the patient consent form that attaches the medical files and submits the attachments to lists. So I hope that that new functionality added to Forms Viewer can help you um, in, submit your attachments to the SharePoint list. So Lab 5 is a bonus. We weren't able to get to the demo, but I hope everyone was able to follow the labs and let us know if you have encountered any issues or if you have successfully implemented them. Let us know. And yeah. Okay, so that's a review, and we'd like to know what are, oh, this is the wrong slide. Um, Actually, I have a slide for the takeaway. Just pause here a bit. Stop showing because it's hidden. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So we'd like to know what were your takeaways for day 1. So let's just ask the participants from top to bottom. You can share with us if you're able to follow the labs. What have you learned so far? So let's start with Alex.
Hi. Well, like I said in day 1, I'm very new to this whole thing, so it was a great introduction. A lot of things I've never seen before, so I definitely want to go back and review the class from yesterday. You guys have posted it on your YouTube channel, correct?
Yes, the recording is now posted in
Okay,
YouTube.
so I will probably go back and review that later today, and hopefully I can follow along this day 2. So
Thank you. And for those who want to find the link, if you access the course training form, there's a YouTube icon for the day 1 card, and if you click in that, if it's already available, it will direct you to the YouTube video. So yeah, thanks, Alex. Caroline, would you like to go next?
Yeah, a lot of this, since this is the 4th time I've attended your class, a lot of this was familiar to me, but I really like that you now have an XTP for the Get User profile. And I enjoyed seeing the forms beta. I'm excited to try that.
Great to hear that. All right, so next is Catherine.
Yeah, so the main thing for me was seeing the forms beta as a forms designer. So I'm looking forward to seeing that I've developed and ultimately rolled out. The other things I think we're mainly already using, although the make data connections I think I've had help with, so I need to work through that, make sure I can do it on my own.
All right, lab 2. You
Yes.
mean lab 2? Okay, let us know if you need assistance in that. We can schedule a one-on-one if you'd like to. And were you able to install Forms Beta?
No, I'm not an admin, so I've got to get my IT department to do it for me.
Oh yeah, I need to decide I need to upload in your app catalog.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Catherine. Debbie, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'm much the same as Catherine in that I guess really excited to see the beta version of Forms Designer, and I think it can be quite transformational for us as an organisation. We're currently kind of stuck with a very clunky info path, and we only have really sort of 1 or 2 individuals who know what they're doing there, and actually Forms Viewer looks a lot simpler and a lot more easy from a UI perspective. I'm just waiting for the beta version to be installed in my SharePoint because I also don't have permission to install it. But I think lots of takeaways yesterday for us as an organisation, which is really exciting.
All right. Well, great to hear that you find our projects easy to use. Thank you. Emma.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Are kind of the same. I mean, I've been in a fair number of the trainings, not every one, but I know for a fact that we used every technique that you went over in the last session in our forms. I recognized every one of them. So, I mean, I'm happy that we started with them though, because even though I'm familiar with them, I mainly work off of templates for forms. So it's always good for me to have a review for kind of building it into the form from scratch. I kind of cheat a little bit. Nicole makes the foundation for me. And I'd say that the thing that we're definitely the most excited for is the designer beta. Of course, being on-prem, we're not able to move forward with it immediately. I mean, we have it installed right now if we were in the cloud, but unfortunately we're on-prem. But we at Greylock are very, very interested in if Qdabra needs testers or people to kind of hop into it being on-prem and let you know if it works or if it doesn't. We're willing guinea pigs. I guess we'll just throw that out there.
Wow. To know that. It definitely, yeah. I will ask Jimmy if we have a definite date of releasing the Forms Beta in on-prem. I'll let you know for sure.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And there's a new attendee. It's Hane. Did I pronounce your name correctly? Hello? Or hi. Hane Nguyen. So that's how the name is spelled. Anyway, I have seen you. You're one of the registered trainees, so you have audio. Let us know. Joe, you like to go next?
Hi, my big takeaway was the Forms beta. I was actually able to get that installed yesterday, and very excited about being able to use that going forward.
Wow, it's great to hear that. All right. Misty? Hello, Misty.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm familiar with most of the, all the techniques that we've talked about so far, but I am interested in getting in and playing with the Forms Viewer beta. I haven't had a chance yet. And then also, I've always just implemented the Forms Viewer links with the classic view. I haven't tried it yet with the modern view instructions, so I would like to also apply that to our forms as well.
Oh, yeah. That's good to know. Yeah, so we have that yesterday for Lab 5 because we were able to demo that. Yeah. If you need any help setting that up, just let us know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Nicole?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So much like everyone else, I was really excited about the Forms Designer, but like Emma said, we aren't able to do it at this point. But most of the other stuff we have used successfully, but being on-prem, sometimes we have to make some adjustments to how we use the templates and program the rules. But yeah, really excited.
Thank you. Well, I remember you mentioning yesterday that you were having some issues implementing this stuff on your own. Do you remember what those issues are?
Some of them are just like tweaks. I know with get user profile, we have to include source equals site users, otherwise it doesn't return the additional fields. So I know that we had run into some things like that where we just have to make slight tweaks to the commands.
I see. But when you added the parameter to get the additional fields,
It works perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Just small things like this that we often run into unique scenarios, but Qdabra is always excellent at helping us resolve them.
I'm thinking that maybe there's just some setting in SharePoint. You need to give permissions to Forms Viewer to access the user profile. So if you want to switch to that option, just let us know. But if it works for you when using site users, well, let us know either way. If you'd like to fix, if you'd like to go with user profiles.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Tobias?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
I, as everyone, enjoyed the Form Designer beta. I'm actually downloading it as we speak, so I should have that ready. I enjoy the faster load time. I remember looking at some colleagues' work on forms a few years now, and it wasn't this fast for loading time, so that's great. And the submit to SharePoint list command supporting I think it was the list items. It was great to see that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, we did a lot of performance improvement in Forms Viewer 6.1, so that's why we're seeing a lot more performance enhancements, like faster load times. So yeah, thank you for that feedback. Okay, so I hope I'm not missing anyone. There's still one attendee. His name is Hai Nguyen. So welcome to our day 2 class. Hope you were able to download the package. Just check the link in my emails and let us know if you were able to access the training form. All right, so let's move on. All right, for day 2, we're going to discuss the top 5 useful, easy to add features. So for lab 1, we're going to discuss how to validate your data. So this is very important because you want to filter your data from the start when the users are filling out the form. Of course, you don't want any invalid data getting saved in SharePoint or getting saved in your SQL if you're submitting to SQL. So validation is important. So that's number 1. Lab 2, we're going to show you how to save file attachments to SharePoint. I know that we showed you how to submit attachments to SharePoint yesterday using submit to SharePoint lists, but this one is different because we're going to show you how you can save attachments to a document library. So for example, you just need to save file attachments alone, not submitting the metadata from just file attachments. So some people do that. They just save it to a document library. But with saving file attachments, you need to use a command in QRoles and configure it. So in this lab, we're going to show you a shortcut. Like we developed this latest XTP for saving file attachments. So I'm going to demo that lab. And after lab 2, we're going to pause for a break, and then we'll go back for lab 3. And Yesha will discuss adding glass signatures to your forms. And if you remember yesterday when we were showing you the patient consent form, we were using this a glass pad where she can write the signature in the browser. And it can also work in mobile too. It's very like trendy now because if you use online forms with glass signature, less contacts with people, right? So it's most requested. Some of our customers have requested that technique. So we're adding that for you to try it out too in this training. So, and next is lab 4, submitting data to SQL using DBXL. And this is also one of the most frequently used XTP. We developed DBXL in 2004, mostly for helping people to submit data to SQL using the Qdabra web services. But in order to do that, you need to configure data connections and everything. But this XTP will save you time, and you just need to tweak a little bit to point the right connections to your own DBXL server, but it will save you time, and most of our clients use this. Some of our clients have a very uniform look for all of their forms, and they add this DBXL XTP as a standard for all of their forms. So yeah, we're doing that for lab 4. And also we have a bonus lab. If we have time, Yesha will show you how she can add the Authy XTP to help you authenticate external users. All right, so let's start with lab 1, validate your data. Yesha, are you ready to demo?
Yep. All right. So for the first lab, we are going to discuss how to add validation to your forms, specifically using the get errors and get error count commands. So the purpose of this is to highlight the required fields. It will also show the specific error messages, display the remaining number of validation errors, and yeah, so this is very useful since it makes resolving validation errors more understandable for our users. So we did tackle this in our October's training, and we are tackling it again um, today for today's training. Okay, so let me try and share my screen. I think I cannot share my screen. Joanne?
Okay, please try again.
Okay. Let me know if you can see it now.
Yes.
All right. Okay, thank you. So let's start off with showing you the end form of the validation. So as you can see here, I've opened the patient consent form, and I've required the first name, the last name, the phone number, the address, and the consent checkbox. So I've required these fields to be submitted. And if you actually try to click submit, it will show you a validation error. It will highlight those required fields, except for the checkbox. But at the bottom of the submit button, you will actually see the number of errors that you have and the specific message. So this is for the users to understand what did I do wrong, or what should I input to my form. So you can add a message here for the users to understand the errors to their form. So as you can see here, I added a simple message wherein the last name should be required, and so on and so forth. So let's try and achieve this um, validation feature to our starter form, which is included in the downloadable package. And I already have that. And let me go and start and open our starter form. So here's our patient consent form. And the first thing that we need to do is to add the validation rules to our field. So um, I'll add a few validation rules, um, and I'll click here the first name and create a validation rule. And I'll just name this validation. So here in the condition, this is where you will add the conditions that you want to be executed. So right now we are going to state that if the first name is blank, um, then you cannot submit the form. And here under you will actually see a screen tip. In this screen tip, this is where you want to indicate the message that the users would see in your form. So let's state here that first name is required. Okay, so you would repeat the steps that we did to the forms that you want to be required, or you have any validations that you want to add to those fields. So let me go ahead and copy this validation and go to our last name field and paste that. And then as you can see, it actually it instantly changed my condition to last name is blank. And what we will be changing is the screen tip. Let me go ahead and fix. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and repeat those steps to other fields that we want to be required. So I want the phone number to be required and change this. And then I'll add that once more to our address. And then lastly, let's just add that to our consent checkbox. So again, if those fields that we added validation of, those fields were left blank, then the validation error will be executed and they won't be able to submit the form. All right, so the next step that we are going to do is I will show you how to apply. Well, I will show you. Well, let's first add. Sorry, let's first add the error message and the error count field, which we will be using later on as a display to our form. So let's go ahead and go to our footer section here. And we are going to add an error message field. And then let's add another message, another field called error count. And under that error count, we will be adding an attribute called message. And I will show you later on where we will be using these fields. Okay. So after you've added those fields to your form, let's go ahead and try to display them in our view here. So I want it to be displayed under my submit button. So let me go ahead and make space here. And I want to I will be dragging the message field below the submit button. Let me go ahead and enter that one more. And I'll just be tweaking the properties here. I'll be checking the multi-line, and then I will also change the width here to 100%. And the next thing that we will be doing is to drag and drop the error message. As you can see, here's the error message. And then just move that up top. And I'll tweak the properties here and make sure you check the multi-line so that for every field, it will have a line break so that the users will understand the error messages. And then for the size, we'll just change this to 100% and click apply. So once you've added those error messages and error count fields, we don't want this to always show in our forms. So what we will do is to hide these fields if ever there are no validation errors. So let's go ahead and click this field and add a formatting for the message attribute. And let's just name this hide. For this, we would state here for the condition, let's go ahead and select the field or group, and you would have to select the error count. So if this is blank, or if the error count, go ahead and select the error count once more, is equal to 0, meaning there are no errors existing, then we would hide this field. Okay, so now that we've added a formatting rule for the message attribute, let's go ahead and try to add a formatting rule for the error message, and we'll name it also as hide. So for the condition, if the error message is blank, then we will also hide this control. All right, so those are our error count and our error message field. And the next that I will show you is adding the get error command. So I've already added in our starter form a form logic XML. So if you go to the data fields and go to the form logic secondary data source, you will actually see here a validation node. So in this validation node, you will see a get errors rule or get errors field. And what we are going to do is add an action here called get errors. And we are going to call the get errors command to this rule. So let's go ahead and add and click set a fields value. And from this, we are going to call the command from Qdabra rules secondary data source. So let's go ahead and select the Qdabra rules command. And actually, if you let me quickly just show you the PDF that's included in the package. And let me go ahead and skip those that we've finished. Here we go. So there's an add get errors command here. You will see here the command that you will be um, adding to this value. So this command just states that we are going to execute the get errors, and the parameter called format is equal to field and message. So this just means that for the message display, we want it to show the field name and also the message, which we actually indicated in our screen tip in the um, fields that we added validation of. And then for the next parameter, no validate is equals to false. This just means that we want this to be validated. So okay, so that's the command that will be executed. And then we also want to add another fields value wherein we want to set the result of this command to the error message field that we just added earlier. So let's go ahead and look for that error message field in our main data source. And we added that to our footer section. So let's go ahead and click that error message. And then to get the result of this command, we will go ahead and look for our Qdabra secondary data source and then click result. So that's the get errors command. The next thing that we are going to do is to add the get error count command. So the same thing, we will add an action here, and let's just name this get error count. So for this get error count, it's the same thing. We will set the field's value and we want to execute the get error command, the get error count Qdabra rules. So to do that, let's go ahead and locate the Qdabra secondary data source and select the command. And in the PDF that we provided you, I've also added here a section for adding the get error count command. And if you scroll down a little bit, you will see here the value. And we will paste that here. So this just means that we are going to execute that get error count, and then the no validate is equals to false. Again, we want it to be validated. So let's click OK. And then for the result, we want this to be set to our error count field, which we added earlier. So let's go ahead and locate that again from our main data source. Go to footer and expand that and select the error count. And then for the result, let's go ahead and go back to our Qdabra secondary data source and click result. All right, so this get error count is actually just retrieving us the number of errors. So of course, the users won't understand just the number 5. So we want to display a message for them to understand. So let's go ahead and set our message attribute from our main data source, which is again under our footer, error count, expand that, and click message. And in our PDF, I indicated here a sample message that you can indicate to your form. So let's go ahead and click FX button and copy paste that. So we want to show the error count. So let's go ahead and set this correctly. So click insert fielder group and locate the error count. from our main data source and click error count. So this will just show that, for example, you have 4 errors found, and please check the details to fix. So this will be the message to be displayed in your form. So let's click OK and OK. So those are the rules that we use to get errors and the get error count. And then the last thing that we need to do is to execute those rules in our submit button. So let's go ahead and click our submit button, and let's run those validation rules that we just added in our FormLogic secondary data source. So to do that, I've already clicked our submit button, and let's go ahead and add an action here. And just remember to place this at the top of your rule so that it will be the first to be executed. Of course, we don't want the data to be submitted if there are if there are errors in that form. So let's go ahead and name this run validation. And in this run validation, we are going to just call those errors that the get errors and get error count that we just set earlier. So to do that, go ahead and locate the FormLogic secondary data source, validation, and this is the get errors node, wherein that's where we set our get errors Qdabra command, and then let's just say go. And then let's repeat that for the get errors count. So set a fields value located from our FormLogic where we added that rule. So the get error count, and just in the value, just input go. So of course, that's not the end of it, because if they click submit, it will still run the following rules. So we don't want that to be executed if there is, or if there are errors in that form. So let's go ahead and add another action or another rule, and let's just name this stop if error exists. So for the condition, we will just state here that if the error message is not blank, and if the error count is not blank, or the error count is not equal to 0. All right, so we're just stating that if the error message and the error count does have values, we don't want to run the remaining rules. So let's click OK in these conditions. And then let's don't forget to check this checkbox that states don't run remaining rules if the condition of this rule is met. And for this rule to actually work, we need to add an action here. So let's just add a dummy action. So set a fields value and locate our FormLogic secondary data source. We actually have here a stop attribute. So this is just a dummy value for this rule to work. So just click OK. And there we go. We've added the rules, the needed rules for the validation. And let's go ahead and try to save this. So I've saved the starter form, and let's try and upload it. See if our validation did work. So I have here day 2. Here we go. Let's upload. Open our form. And let's go ahead and click submit. There we go. There. So we have, as you can see, it highlighted those required fields, and it is actually showing us the field name, the field message, and also the count of the error. So if we actually type in Yesha and click submit again, as you can see, it just showed 3 errors because I've already input data onto that field. And there we go. That's the validation that you can add to your forms. Hopefully you can add these um, very important command rules to your forms. All right.
Thank you, Yasha. It looks so nice and it blends well with the patient consent form. It's nice to see that in action. Thank you for that demo. Does anyone have any question for Yasha? All right. Okay. Alex just chatted that Miss T left Zoom accidentally. I'm waiting for her to rejoin, but I'm not seeing any prompt to admit her.
I'm
I
in.
think she got
Is
back
she
in.
in? Oh, thank
Yep,
you.
I did.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Joey.
it dropped me and then I was waiting to be put back in, but I'm here, so sorry.
Sorry about that. All right. Okay. Does anyone have any comment for Yesha? All right. So, if not, let me go back to my slides here. I'm not sharing, right? Okay, I'm going to share. Okay, so I think Yesha has explained it clearly, and you learned how to validate your data. All right, so next slide. Okay, so lab 2 is about saving file attachments to SharePoint. So like I mentioned earlier, in day 1, we discussed how you can submit attachments to a list using submit to SharePoint list command. But this time we are going to save file attachments to a SharePoint library. And we're going to use a brand new XTP today. And we have not used this before. We just developed it for this training. So it's called Save File Attachments. And I'm going to show you how you can configure that to in your forms. And yeah, and at the end, I'm also going to show you how you can enable the multi-drop feature in the file attachment control. We had that command in Forms Viewer, I think about a year ago, and users have seldom used it because they are not aware that it's already out there. So the feature is there. You can multi-drop files in the file attachment control, and I will show you how you can do that. All right, let's switch to my demo here. Okay, so let's open the form. And before I do anything, I just want to quickly show you that my attachments library here is blank. And I have not submitted any attachments yet. So now I'm showing you the end form. So I'd like to show you how the end form would look like if you follow the lab. So I have 3 medical files here, and I've selected them. I'm going to drag it over to this file attachment control. All right, so let's do that. All right, so you see that the attachment control just grab those 3 files instantly. You don't need to click through them one by one to attach the files, right? So it's just saving you time. If you have forms that take in multiple files from users, you can definitely use this technique. So when I drop those files, let's see what's happening in the background here. So in here in my QROS history, you'll see that the command, first the register multi-drop. So this means that I have enabled that feature for my file attachment control. That's why it's working. And also for each file attachment control, there is a command called get attachment attribute. And what it's doing is it's getting the file name of the attachments. So we just copy that add here so you can see. You'll see here that it's using the parameter attribute and we're taking the value name. So that's why it's getting that file name as value in our result field there. It's getting success. So that means that it's successfully running. Okay, so, and lastly, I want to submit this. So after I drop the files, I'll submit it. All right, well, let's see again. Okay, so now you see that my save to SharePoint command is running and it was able to save 3 files. Let's check the form library. So it's there. So my medical files are there. So that's what we want to achieve for this lab. Let me just delete this. Okay. So to start, if you have the package already, go to the package. Let's open the document, of course. And here you're going to start by creating a document library if you don't have one. So if you're going to be using our sample form, the patient consent form, well, you're free to do so, but you can also apply this technique using one of your forms. So I'm guessing that a lot of your forms are using file attachment control. Catherine, I know your ethics form have a lot of attachment controls, right? So maybe this technique is going to be helpful. So first, you're going to have the attachments library. So create that if you don't have one yet. And then open the starter form for this lab. So the starter form is also in the package. So this one. So I'm going to click design. Okay. And then it will ask you to add the XTP as a custom control. So I've already added that here, this one, but I'm going to re-add it. So select template part, browsing to my template part. And so this is the template part. So if you see a file that's called .xtp, so that's the one that we're looking for. Finish. I did select the right one, right? I made an update earlier. Yeah. That's the way with QA testers. I always double check. All right. So close. All right. So now when it's added, it will XTP under the custom control. So yeah, it's now displaying here, save file attachments. And in the starter form, you'll see a placeholder field here that's just display some guidance text that says add the file attachment XTP. And this form is a custom control. Place your cursor below and click the save file XTP. So I'm going to place my cursor here and I'm going to click that XTP. Okay, so the XTP is this section here with add and delete buttons because it's a repeating section with an attachment control. And then it also comes with the instruction. You can definitely follow the instructions along with the XTP, but if you're following the lab, you may do so. All right, so the first step here is to inject Q rules if you haven't done so, but we already have Q rules here, so I'm not going to do that. Okay, and then it says we need to run a rule and finish loading. So I'm going to call it run save. Okay. We're going to select the save file field in the XTP logic for the save file attachment. So select that and just enter some value to say go. Like it can be a different value, but we're just telling that rule to, or that field to run the rules for us because we have a stopper here if it's blank. So if it's not blank, then it's gonna run the commands. So next is modify the set Q rules edit, also in the XTP logic. So I'm going to select the temp command. We always do this for our XTP, so maybe you're already used to this, repointing to the command node. The reason why we have placeholders for that is because when we develop XTPs, we can't inject Q roles in an XTP. So in developing XTP, there is no Q roles to select. That's why we're just placing some dummy fields here. All right, so those are these two. And then let's go back to the save file node and select this. So here, it's asking you to enter your file attachment repeating table XPath. So how do you get the XPath for the repeating table? So you can simply select this. So the repeating table will expand, and then this is what we want. If it shows that blue icon in the folder, that means it's the repeating one. So let's right click on that and copy XPath. So once we've copied the XPath, let's go back here and enter the XPath here. All right, so just did step 4 there, just looking in the lab here. It's the same, the steps are also the same, by the way. But for the sake of the lab, I just place it here. So we just did this, right? The XPath. Right, so we're now here. We're locating the attachment repeating table and selecting the trigger field there. Yeah, so select the trigger field and you see that there is a rule here that you need to edit. So we're gonna enter the library name here. So the library name is the attachments document library. So you're gonna enter your library name. In this case, I'm using attachments. So I'm gonna type it here. All right. And then in the repeating table, you're going to double click the count field and copy everything. You would Control X and click the FX button and paste the formula here, and then verify formula, and then click OK twice. And let's save the form. Should we save this in my demo folder? Yeah, let me just check if I'm forgetting something. Yeah, so there's one more here. Yeah, so in our submit button, so in your form, you have your own submit button, right? So find your submit button. So this is my submit button, and I will add a rule here called save files. And then I will set the trigger field in my repeating table for the attachments. This trigger field here to go. It's because we have a bunch of rows here, right? So if we set that to go, that means the form will recognize that trigger, and then it will run the rules in this trigger node. Okay, and at the end of this, actually it's building the something here, right? But you don't have to worry about that. The most important thing is right here, because this is where the save to SharePoint command runs, right? So it's just building those parameters with the values that have already been set in these rows. All right, so we just saved it. So okay, saved. Let's delete the instruction. We don't need to display that. And what I would like to do is just place the control outside of the section, because I don't need some extra section in my form. Okay, all right, so I'm going to save this. And I'm going to upload this. Right, let's open it. Let's make sure we don't have file attachments, right? Okay, and then I'm just gonna fill out. I'm going to save the form to form library. Right. So right now, the file attachment control is not yet a multi-drop. So I'm going to show you how you can enable that later. So for now, we're going to manually click from the attachment control and select our file. Okay. Submit. All right. So you can see the file attachments have been submitted. And Zoom is not allowing me to click on the footer. So do I move this? All right, so sorry about that. I'm just reading chats. Okay. So let's see. Our save to SharePoint command just ran successfully, as you can see there. And now I'm going to show you how you can enable the multi-drop settings. So let's go back in our form. Select the finish loading under Qdabra rules, and here we're going to add a rule called, let's say, enable multi-drop for attachments. And let's set the command field to this command. Okay. If you're wondering how to build this command, because I just copied that, right? To be honest, I don't memorize all the parameters in our commands, but when I need to remember the parameters required, I would go to the design page of Forms Viewer, and then in the command builder, I will search for the command that I want to use. In this case, I'll be using the register multi-drop command. So selected that, and here, because it's connected to our template, right? I can select the repeater that I want. So the repeater is this, the attachment repeating field. So that's the required field, right? So it's under the required parameter. So that means you need to provide some values for that parameter. And then what I wanted to do is select an attachment field here. So I would select the file field, then compare. And then it's going to build the command for me. I don't need to hand type that manually. I didn't. I just build the command here and copy and paste that in my rules. So that's why I was able to instantly get that. So I hope you find that command builder handy when you need to build your commands. All right, so I'm going to save this and re-upload my template. Okay, open it again. And let's see. Files here, just dragging them there. And it's there. It's working for us because the command is running here in the background. There. All right. So after you've implemented this save file attachments XE to your forms, you can also make a lot of enhancements here because it's not yet perfect. You can add some more like functionality, like clear the files if you don't want them to be in the form after you submitted the form, right? Because some will just use Q rules to delete the files when they get submitted to SharePoint, and then just display the link here. So maybe I can show you that. I didn't try that in the lab, but let's see. Okay. Here. Yeah. So here I have a clear rule that says false. So that means that whenever you submit a file attachment, the file attachment control will not be cleared. So let's try. Yeah, so it's still there. Still there, right? Let's try to make this false. So why do we want to clear the file attachment sometimes? Because sometimes people would attach a very large file, and it will put a lot of weight to your forms, and it will affect your form's performance. So that's why we would want to clear those files. And maybe what you like to do is display the Curls link here. Let me drag that there. It's not going to look perfect right now, but let's see what it looks like. It's supposed to display the SharePoint link for us where the attachment is saved. So let's try that. It's not in the lab, by the way, but let's try it. And so what I did is I set the clear parameter to false because we to true, sorry, right? Set that to true because we want to clear the files, right? So let me just clear my attachment here. Okay, do that again and submit. So right now, what we want to achieve is when it submits, it should clear out the files, right? So that's, yeah, so we just did that. So it has cleared the files. So if the files that the user attaches very large, they're not going to be in your form. They're going to be residing in your document library. So what you want your forms users to see is the link to the form. So that's why that's how you can make use of the Curls link. You can display that in your form to let your users know that, oh, this attachment is already saved to this document library. So yeah, that's about it for my demo. Does anyone have any questions for this technique? Do you think this would be helpful or it's going to be a good addition to your form?
Joanne, this is Nicole. For us, we always have to rename our attachments because people like to put either really long names or non-related names to our attachments. Yours are beautiful. They have medical 1, 2, 3. We usually get a bunch of letters and numbers and all sorts of stuff. Since we deal with member files a lot, we have to have some sort of metadata to identify what the document actually is. So we use the create folder command a lot if we're not going to rename them, so that it drops it into the folder first so that we can find them later on.
Wow, I'm so happy to know you're using it. That's a good question, actually. Like I said, you can still play around with Save to SharePoint. I'm just using the plain get attachment attribute where it's taking the actual file name, but with Save to SharePoint, you can actually replace the file name with a unique name. So for example, in your case, you would like to have some sort of organization in your document library, maybe, so you don't get confused when people name their file differently. So there's a parameter called unique name for Save to SharePoint. You can add this as a parameter in that rule here. Now you can append that parameter and set it to, if you set that to true, it's going to generate a unique name for you for that file. So it's going to override what is the actual file name, and it's going to use a unique name and save that in your document library. And it's good that you're using the create the SharePoint folder command, because with create SharePoint folder, you get to organize your files, right? You can name the folder first, for example, with the user who's submitting the attachments, right, to make it look more organized. Yeah, so I hope that's helpful. If you need help on using these parameters, just let us know. But for now, the save file attachments XTP is ready to use if you want to play around a bit and explore what it's doing and how the command runs. Yeah, you can please feel free to explore it and let us know if you run into any issues. All right, thanks for that question, Nicole. Does anyone else have any questions before we take a break? So we're done with our lab 2. We're taking a break and we'll be back for lab 3 after 10 minutes. All right, we'll be here. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Yasha, can you still hear me?
Yes.
All right, so I'm just chatting with Patrick and he said that he's going to join. So let's wait for him shortly. He's gonna do some introductions for DBXL. Hello, Patrick. I'm seeing you in the list, but I can't hear you.
I just have to click the unmute button. How's it going? How's day 2?
Well, I think we're doing great so far.
Well, it's great to
Yeah,
be here.
we're
Thanks. You know, it's great that you guys have done such a great job preparing and delivering the class so far, and I really enjoyed listening to the recording yesterday. I want to wish everyone a happy training day, and wherever you may be, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Joanne and Nisha. So I want to just jump in here and do a little cameo and talk about what DBXL is briefly before the lab. Qdabra as a company started back in 2003 with the idea of helping customers adopt Microsoft technologies, and specifically it was this new innovative form technology called InfoPath, and I was the development manager on that team. And I thought, well, I'm in my mid-30s. If I don't leave now, I never will. So I left Microsoft, started Qdabra, and we started building solutions. Of course, we went back to Microsoft and built solutions for them. And we quickly realized that what they give you is not all of the essential ingredients. You know, you have to do, you know, SharePoint doesn't scale beyond 5,000 items, and you can't get repeating data out of your forms, and lots of other things. And so we said, well, we better develop some tools to help our customers. At that time, it was just Microsoft. Now we have hundreds of customers, but to help our customers actually, you know, create large-scale software solutions using this platform. And at the time, it was Office 3. It wasn't even Office 365. It was Office, SharePoint 2003, and then SharePoint 2007, and then we moved to online. So our first accelerator that we developed was the database accelerator, because we wanted to create these large-scale solutions that allow people to collect you know, hundreds of thousands or millions of records using their forms. Now, most forms don't have that requirement. You know, most forms you're collecting 1,000 items a month, or maybe 2,000, but then once you get above, you know, that range of 1,000 to 2,000 collections per month, it's better to use a database, because you can actually store data more securely. You can store it for reporting purposes in one centralized location. So there's a bunch of really key advantages, but most importantly, it's about scalability. So for those large scale processes that you have, and you know, you could do it for every process you have, because then it's consistent. But we developed this tool to help customers move their data from the SharePoint libraries to database. And the first thing we realized is that we need to be able to map data in repeating structures and tables, you know, in any way to any data, in any database structure. So this tool gives you the ability to quickly map the data. So you can build any form you want, you can have any database you want, and you can create a mapping layer in between that lets them synchronize. And then we extended the tool over the years to include things like PDF rendering. You can query the databases. You can have support for any number of databases. You can also use it for email. We actually just shipped a new version of DBXL last month for that we added email reminders to. So that's a quick history of DBXL, and I know that many of you are using DBXL, and you've been using it for many years, and I really want to thank you for that. We continue to improve it. In fact, we were just talking to the team last week about another new feature. So even though it's been out now for since 2005, we continue to think of new ways to improve it. And if you have ideas, please don't hesitate to let me know. So I think that's the quick introduction. Joanne?
Thank you, Patrick, for that introduction. So I think I'll just gonna jump the lab and do the demo for DBXL.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for about DBXL? I mean, if I know, Caroline, Joe, Emma, and Nicole, you guys are all on it, and I'm probably missing some people. But any questions on this accelerator? This is one of the tools. Of course, Forms Viewer is another tool that we used. We created to help customers. But if anyone has questions on it, I was trying to find our slide deck on it, and I can probably find it, but I don't want to spend a ton of time on it because this lab is really for the ability to take your forms and move them to the database. And for those of you who don't have DBXL, I think it's more of a like future, this is possible. So don't, it's good to know how to do this in the future. We developed this XML template part that very easily lets you take an existing form and move it to be a database backed form. And that's what they're going to show in the lab. This is a key XML template part we developed over a year ago for one of our large DBXL customers, and it simplifies the process of moving your forms to be DBXL backed. So in other words, the data is stored in the database. Joanne, sorry, I have to keep on talking. Any questions though?
I remember Nicole and Emma expressed that they're really interested in DBXL and getting more knowledge about how to use it.
Mm-hmm. And I forgot, Alex and Misty also have a new installation, so we should not forget them. But I don't see, is Emma, did Emma and Nicole make it on the call today? I guess they're not on, right?
Yeah, we're here.
Oh, great.
We're here. Yeah.
Yeah, they're here. Emma and Nicole.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll just shut up then and go for it, Joanne. I'll be here to answer any questions later. I'll lurk in the background.
All right, thank you.
All right, take care.
All right, so we're now doing demo for Lab 4. So let's go to the package. So if you have the package open already, you can follow along. So this documentation really has the complete steps on how you can integrate your form templates in order to submit data to DBXL, and then DBXL will take care of submitting your XML data for you to SQL. So what you'll need is the DBXL XTP, of course. So we provided that in this package. So you go to the package, you'll see this DBXL XTP. So that's the one that you'll need. Q rules, so you need to inject Q rules in your form. And there's a video clip that comes with this document, and you can watch it if you don't have Q rules in your form yet. So we're using Q rules the Q rules command to submit to DBXL. That's why you need your forms to be injected with Q rules.
Yeah, this clip is showing how to inject your form with Q rules. You don't need to have Q rules. You can just use Forms Viewer to inject it with Q rules. And then
right, yeah.
And then I also want to make a quick comment about submitting to the database. So that's how easy it is. You just load it into Forms Viewer, Forms Designer. This is the alpha version of Forms Designer, not the one that you saw yesterday, the beta with the new one. The new one doesn't actually have the injection ability yet. So you'll have to use that alpha link, but both buttons are there in the new Forms beta. So before we jump a little further, I want to make one more comment, Joanne, if that's okay. That there are 3 ways to submit data to DBXL. Actually, there were 4. Back in the day, you could actually create a database-backed form. And I know, Caroline, you did this with your forms. There was a way in InfoPath Filler to connect it to the database and to have the form infer the database schema when you created the form. That only was supported for the filler when InfoPath Form Services, the browser-based version of InfoPath, became more popular in 2010 and on. They deprecated that ability to design a form from a database schema was no longer supported. But you could still take a form and you could like have it write directly to the database, right? You could put commands in your form as code and then have it directly write to the database. And we still have that support in QRules. So QRules is a set of commands that allow you to quickly do things that aren't out of the box. So things that should have been in forms in InfoPath. We added the facilities to QRules. And one of those commands is like, for example, submit SharePoint list, a very common one. But one of the commands we have now is we have these two commands called make request and execute request. I think those are the two. Maybe I got the name incorrect, but there are two ways you can actually write directly to the SQL database from your forms. You don't actually need DBXL. And we have customers doing this. The downside of that approach number two, because approach number one is no longer available because you're not using the InfoPath filler. So approach number two is directly to SQL using code, your code or QRules code. You're better off using QRules because of the maintenance cost is lower. But the downside is that you have to have the transactional SQL script inside your form. So it makes it less secure. It makes it slightly easier to break because, that's, this very brittle command string that you've got in your form. And whenever you change something, you have to go in there and modify it. But you can still do it that way. And then, of course, there's the web service way. Microsoft was recommending everyone use web services to submit data to databases back in 2003 and on. They just said everyone should create a separate web service for every template. Your web service is specific to your forms schema, your forms main data source. Well, that was such a bad idea that we developed DBXL because we wanted to have one kind of web service that allows you to map any form to any database structure. So it's kind of like a mapping accelerator from XML to SQL. So that allows you to have no code, no SQL security concerns, and it's just a much better thing because it's abstracted and it's easy to change without changing the form. So I just wanted to mention those other ways. There is yet a fourth way of actually submitting data to SQL, and that's using Flow. You could actually have a form and you could have Flow submit the data to SQL. And we've done solutions like this before. The downside of that is that it's not synchronous. So Flow tends to operate, it gets triggered and it takes a few minutes and then, something happens. So there's a synchronous problem. The other issue is you have to now have, Microsoft changed licensing 2 years ago, and you have to have a premium Flow license to have the SQL connector. It used to be free. They decided not to make it free in fall of 2019, maybe it was 18, but it was a while ago. So that's the downside of using Flow, the two main issues. And of course, we've added a lot of support for other things in DBXL over the years. Okay, sorry, Joanne, I just wanted to add a little more information.
Thank you, Patrick. All right, so thanks for sharing those different options how we can submit to DBXL. I really don't know that we can use Power Automate to submit to DBXL, so glad to know that that's possible.
Don't recommend it, but you can do it.
I don't recommend it. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a downside of that. All right, so okay, so I'm still here, right? What you'll need. If you have DBXL already, of course, you can skip this part. But if you don't have that yet, you can download the latest and greatest from this link. So I've uploaded the latest DBXL versions. We're now in 3.4. We just released it last month. And some of our customers have already upgraded their DBXL version to 3.4. So if you'd like us to help you upgrade your version, let us know and we'll schedule an upgrade for you. Okay, so let's start with the exercise. So the first important thing is you need to have a DBXL key. So after you've installed DBXL, you need to generate a key for the users in order for users to submit to DBXL. It doesn't necessarily have to be each user have to have key of their own, right? It can be one general key for everyone.
Let's just make a comment on this too, Joanne, because people might be, if you're using Active Directory and everyone is on-prem, and I think Emma and Nicole, this applies to you, but if you have everything in one domain, you do not need a key. You can just have people use their accounts to access DBXL, and then you just go into the permissions in DBXL and you'll add permissions for that distribution list or whatever the Active Directory group is that everyone's in. Everyone, for example, NT, authority, whatever it is, all users. You can do it that way as well. So you don't absolutely need a key if you're on-prem and everyone's logged in. The key approach is very similar to the Office 365 token-based approach that we have in claims authentication now, which is when you're on the internet, you aren't necessarily logged in, so you have to have a token that allows you to continue to get access with your browser session. And that's really kind of what this is. It's a token for accessing DBXL. You can just create one for your entire group, and then you can control permissions at a more finer granularity inside of DBXL, or you can create one per user. And Joanne's showing how to do that.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so let me show you how to do that. Just find my shortcuts here. All right, so in the documentation, there is a link to another instruction for your generating the DBXL key. So I just downloaded that document, and this zip file contains the XSN that we provided, and what you need to do is just select or set the site URL here to your own DBXL server. So let me enter my DBXL server name there. So there, and then just preview the form. Here, I'm going to type in the user I want to associate the key with, and then click query for key. Right, I'm going to click that. It's going to ask for our password. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a second here.
Joanne, this is in the info path filler you're running this, which is kind of so it's so old school, for lack of a better word. Is there a way to do this? I mean, obviously, for people that don't have the info path filler installed, can't they just go to the web service and you do it that way? The web service description, what is it, the WSDL, the web service description language. Isn't there a way to do it from the, maybe we can take that offline. I don't mean to randomize you again here, but I want to point out that we definitely don't want to be forcing people to use this old school technique. So we probably want to come up with another way or give them the other way.
Yeah, well, in general, when we do the installs, the admins would generate the key right away in the DBXL server. So they just save that key and use that for all of their forms. But just for the sake of the demo, and if users want to generate their own keys, we're providing
Can you navigate to the web service, and let me just see if we can find it there and show the other technique. Can you just go to the go to the DBXL web service and let's show them that screen. And,
okay.
And it may be that you're not able to actually run the web method to generate the key from the browser, but let's just navigate there if you don't mind. They're using.
I can do that. Yeah.
Okay, great. And I'll walk them through. I'll walk you through where this other way of generating the key is, because I think I can find it. So, if you've got DBXL installed, it's a web service, so it requires IIS, Internet information service 7 or whatever on the server. And
Password, sorry about that.
yeah, thanks for being secure. We know that all of the attendees are secretly going to hack us. They've got, so we want to make
Because
sure.
we're posting the recording, right? So.
Well, the nice thing about the key, when you generate the key, is that it will prevent denial of service attacks, because it won't, the web service won't even pay attention to it if it's not. I mean, you could still probably overwhelm the port, but you can't overwhelm the database with the web service, because it'll just ignore it at that if the token doesn't match. So are you going to share out your screen and show the web page?
Yeah, in a minute here. Okay, I'm going to share again.
And before people
Okay.
don't, yeah, sorry. Okay, there you go. Great. So now if you go down below where it says web service descriptions and click on that, then I think it's, do you know which one it's in? Is it in the document service? Is it in that one? And just search for key. It might be in the admin. If you're in your form, the form will tell you which web service. I should know this, but I don't. It's okay. Is it EX? Just do a Control F or something and search for key. That's the query method. That's the submit method. Where's the generate key method? It must be in the admin service. Go back to the descriptions. You click on admin service. Okay, and Control F key. Does that give us anything here? I don't see anything here either. Okay, so let's go back to your form.
I do have a shortcut. It's already here.
Oh, it's the key service. Is it even listed in the homepage there?
Yeah, I just have a shortcut for the URL.
No, but go back to the main page.
Is
it go back here? Is it even listed? Is the key service even in that list? It is not.
Yeah,
It is
hidden.
Okay, so this is really good information. So for those of you that don't have info path filler, you want to generate these keys, you're going to have to type in that Qdabra web service / DBXL key service. And then there's these two methods, just one that you need, get user key. And so you'll just navigate there, and on the server, you'll be able to type in the username and actually run invoke. You know, Joanne's running it across the internet, so I don't think you're going to be able to do it, Joanne. Yeah, so it's not going to give you any love here in terms of the key. But for those of you who are on-prem, you can actually log into that virtual machine from that box. You do not need info path filler. You can go to this web service. You can click on get user key, type in a name, click on invoke, and you can generate the key totally without info path. So that's another approach to use. Since you're only going to do this once or twice or however many times, it may not make sense to have to install info path filler to do this. And we really should have a sample form in FormsViewer. I mean, maybe it's impossible, because it's like a chicken or egg problem. You need access to the service before you can use it, and the key gives you access. So I think we have that issue there, and that's why we're doing it this way. But there is that other approach. Okay, sorry, Joanne.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, like Patrick said, we have different options for generating key. All right. So next, after you've generated the key, okay, let's create a new document type in DBXL. And there's a short clip here as well that you can watch. But well, for the sake of this demo, I'm just gonna go and do the actual stuff here. Okay, so just click DBXL administration tool. Okay, there's the document type that I created. I'm just gonna create a new one. Called demo. Let's put it under training. I'm gonna choose the file.
When you create a name here, keep in mind it will warn you, but you can't add spaces. It has to be
Right.
There's some special characters that it won't allow.
Yeah, let's get That's correct. Then permissions, and then I'm going to type the user that I generated the key for. Then I'm going to check this for.
Now here, this is another thing that we should mention when you're saving this, Joanne. The role name is all that matters here. So the role name has to match that name that you entered in the when you generate the key. The name on the left can be whatever you want it to be. It can be my crazy user, but because it's not going to check the name, it's only going to check the role name. So the role name is all that has to match. You can name it whatever you want, everyone, but the role name has to match the key that you generated.
All right, that's correct. Okay, so let's proceed. The next step is to add a database mapping. So of course, we want to submit data to SQL. So DBXL would be able to do that if you have a database mapping set up here in the database mapping tab. So let's do that. First, you need to add the connection string. So I'm going to paste that here and replace the server name in my DBXL server name. And my database name is SampleDB. And just click test connection and okay. And let's add a table. Let's select the patient consent table that I created a while ago, and then let's select the columns that we want to map our fields with. So for this form, I want to map the full name column to, oh, well, first we're going to select the base path here at the top. So after that, select the column and map that to the fields in your form, okay? So I'm going to select the full name field here. And as you select the columns, it's going to go away in the dropdown. So that means that you've already selected that. So see address here. Let's just select a few because we don't want to use all fields, right?
We should probably talk about primary keys too while you're doing this. I'll just make a few comments here when you create your database table, you can either specify a primary key in the database table, or you can use the doc ID from the form. And I think that we have probably 75–80% of our customers using the doc ID because you can just select it here and then make it the key. So as Joanne selects it here, she can she's going to select a token here, and this is the special DBXL token, and then she want to make that the key. You forgot to check that box, Joanne.
I already added an ID as identity.
So you did the SQL. Yeah, okay, so you did it in the SQL. Yeah. Okay, I gotcha. So that yeah. So if you did it in SQL, you don't necessarily have to mark a key here, but you might want to map it anyway because you're using it for a link or you're using it for a downstream process like email, and you want to have it available. The doc ID.
All right. So that's your mapping. So we just did this, step 3, and then let's open the starter form. Okay, let's go back to the package, open the starter form.
Most of the mappings are going to be multi-level, and when you create a child table underneath those top level tables, you'll have the option of creating a foreign key relationship with them. So if you're just wondering, well, how does repeating work? There is another kind of row type that appears when you're mapping child tables.
Okay, so let's add the XTP to the form. So by now we may already be familiar on how to add XTPs to your form. So let's put the cursor at the bottom and add the XTP. So let's select template part and go to the package. Here's the XTP. Let's add that.
As Joanne mentioned
so that means
yesterday, you've already got it.
fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As Joanne mentioned yesterday, we are going to be adding a lot of these XTPs from the class into the Forms Designer in the next. We're doing these 2-week sprints now, and so we're updating it every 2 weeks, trying to get to 1.0 sometime this summer. And we're going to be adding a lot of these easy to add XTPs. For example, the auto refresh, the auto log out stuff, the what was the one yesterday that you did, the making it responsive. Those kind of XTPs are really easy to add to Forms Designer because we've got the infrastructure now in Forms Designer. And then we'll be adding the DBXL one as well. So you're going to see in that drop down in Forms Designer all of these XTPs. You're not going to have to go to InfoPath Dev and search out where these things are, or ask us, or go back to your training materials. They're just going to be in the Forms Designer, and that's going to allow us to update them and give you the latest and greatest, so that you don't have to worry about managing them.
Right. Yeah. And what we did for that one is dynamic theses XTP. Yeah. And so what I just did is I pointed the temp command to the command field and curls in the result field. So that's the step 3 here. So we're done with that. So it's going to add download rule here called run DBXL XTP. And set the download field to go. And let's go to that field, and where it says set DBXL value. So this is where you're going to set the DBXL server name. So mine is pretty long, so I have that in my notepad. So I'm going to say okay on that. And this one is asking for your user key, so that's what we generated here. Space it there. And I think for submit functionality, that's about it. There's one more, and it's right here. Okay, so set values for submit. So the important part is you want to enter the doc type name here. So mine is patient consent. Yep. Okay.
That's a common problem we see with when you're submitting a DBXL using curls command, is people forget to set the doc type. And then of course they wonder, well, where'd the data go? It didn't go anywhere really. It just died. So it's really important that you tell DBXL which doc type you want to submit it to. And that's actually a parameter in the web method, but curls makes it simpler, so you don't have to worry about setting it. You can just set that value in the XTP.
Yeah. All right. And then the last part is to add a submit trigger in your submit button. So find your submit button in your template that you're working on, and then add a submit to DBXL rule and set the submit field to go. So let's find that. The submit field is here under the XTP logic actions. So let's put some value there to trigger the rules in that field, and you're good to go. But before that, I'm going to delete the instruction.
Can you show them the rules in the submit too? Just
Oh
show
yeah,
them.
sure. Yes.
And the submit to DBXL is just that command. Yeah, that's the command they're using, the curls command. Like I said, you can just use a web connection, web service connection. You don't have to use curls to submit. But the nice thing about using curls to submit is you get the doc ID back, and there's a bunch of other information you can get back. So you can get return information, success or failure. If you're just submitting to the web method, you have to do the parsing yourself. But because we're using the curls command, it's a little bit easier to tell when something failed.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Let's upload the end form. Okay.
So let's ask Emma and Nicole, or I guess it's Nicole, about how you've been doing this so far with DBXL? Are you just using a template, or are you doing these steps?
We use the template that Mel gave us. And to be honest, Emma and I were so overwhelmed. We had a hard time kind of picking through everything to see how it actually worked. So this seems pretty easy. I think we can actually do one of our own ourselves.
That's the goal of the lab, is to let you, sort of unleash the freedom to self-serve. What's the right word? I don't know. Not use the hard-coded templates. So you're submitting, Joanne, to see if it actually shows up in the database. This is the key verification step.
Yeah.
And Misty, this, I don't know if you're on the call or Alex, but this is really important for your stuff too, because you're going to be adding a lot of forms into the database, and this will make it a lot easier to configure it. So hopefully, what it take Joanne here about 10, 15 minutes to do this. Hopefully that's really what you're seeing in terms of your mileage for adding this to new forms too.
Yeah, I hope so. Yep.
Cool. So you had success. Let's go to the database. 1051. Let's actually go to the database and show them the documents tab.
Database first.
Yeah.
Well, the documents tab in DHE?
Well, either way, I mean, you can show them if you got SQL running, or you got a virtual machine or something, you can log in and show them that. But yeah, so this is one easy place to verify it, is she's only got one document. So you can see that she did not name the metadata. So we really ought to extend the lab to include the metadata. Let's take a note on that, Yesha, to do that, because we don't want to leave blanks in here. And typically the metadata, you're going to want to put in just what it says there. Okay, there's the data, right? 1051. Awesome.
Right.
So go back to the database, DBXL right here. So this data, the version number and the reference ID are set by DBXL. So those, if you go to the data, go to the general tab. Let's just describe what those are. So you can actually set your own reference IDs. So if you're like, well, we want to use our own reference template to create IDs, you can do that here. Joanne, do you have an example of what does one stand for in curly brackets?
I don't know. We used to do this with curly brackets with what's the correct one?
Yeah, there is a document on this. So if you want to create your own specially formatted reference IDs, you can do that, and you can make it based on, you can actually stuff it back into the form. That's what the XPath is there for. You can read up on that, and just go to InfoPath and search for, you go into the DBXL documents, or you can just email us. Let's go back to the documents tab and show them the other ones. So the version number, like I said, that'll automatically get set. Every single time she submits a form, it'll bump up the version number. So if she opens up 1051 and she makes a change and submits it again, then it's going to be 2 and so on. Now, DBXL stores every single version of every single document you've ever submitted. Now you can turn that off. We turn it on by default, but if you go back to the general tab, I think it's on the general tab. Joanne, is it there? Where is it? It's enable document history right there. So that's on by default. And that means that every single version is saved for auditing purposes. So you can look at every single version of that document, which is really nice. Now we have different other ways of storing change tracking history in your forms. We can do it on a field level. We can do it even in between the field level and the document level. This is document level granularity, because every single time it's submitted, it's going to store a new version. And you can get all those versions. If you go into the, where's the version information? Click on the documents tab again, Joanne. I don't think we have version information for this, but if you did, you can click on history and you could get there. There's also a web API for querying it. And you can then query every single history. So right now there's just one. And this is really not a super useful UI because you're going to end up with thousands, hundreds of thousands of documents in here. So this is not a very useful way to look at documents. I don't recommend downloading from here. You can, it's a backup, but it's mainly, we use it just to verify that the actual submit worked. Now, if there's an error, Like, let's say that you had a document that didn't map to SQL. So if it's showing up here, but it's not showing up in SQL, then what you want to do is you want to check the box and click reshred. So let's just do that to show them how they do that. And this then will pop up an error message if there's a problem. Now, typically, why would there be a problem? Well, if you've got a database column that's set to 64 characters, but your field has 65 characters, and then there you'll have a field overrun and you'll get an error on submit. And the same could happen if you have a different data type. So if you're using a date, for example, and someone enters something that is not a date, SQL will enforce that, and it will basically cause an error. So the easy way to fix it, there's two ways, right? One way is you just go back into the form and you make it validate. When we did the validation lab earlier, right? The other thing that you can do is you can go into your SQL database and make it more, you can relax the constraint. You can make it longer, you can make it a string, whatever, so that doesn't fail. So that's something that typically happens. You'll also want to set up email notifications. So whenever there is a document that comes in that fails, you'll want to get email notifications. I think, Joe, you've got that set up. I don't think we've done this for you, Emma or Nicole, but I think we might have configured Misty's. I'm not sure. Joanne, do you remember if Misty's was configured to email her when there's a shredding anomaly?
No, we didn't configure it.
Yeah, it's easy to do. Yeah, and there's a document on this, but
Yeah, I think I have the instructions for that, Patrick.
Yeah, it's you know, I recommend it highly because you're probably not going to have shredding anomalies very often, but when you do, you know, it's a big deal because that data is not going to show up on your reports. It's just like, it's still there, it's in the database, but it just didn't get shredded. And it's typically because of one of those kinds of errors. Too much information, sorry.
No, that's really helpful, Patrick. Yeah, we perhaps later in the next training we can include that as a lab. Enable the emails for the error alerts in DBXL. Yeah, I put it. Write something up for that. All right, so
yeah, two more just brief comments here. You're done with the lab, right?
Yeah.
Two more brief comments right here. Let's stay right here for a second, Joanne. So we did a webinar 2 weeks ago on the reminder stuff. So the reminder tab is a new tab that we added to DBXL 3.4 at the end of March. This is a feature that Hillary worked on. And it allows you to set up reminders. Now you have to have an email configured first. So you have to go into email and you have to configure your email mappings. The benefit of using DBXL to send email versus Power Automate Flow was covered in a webinar we did about a year ago in April of 2020. We basically did a comparison of using Flow versus DBXL for email notifications. And just to summarize, the main advantage is for DBXL is it's synchronous. So it happens quickly. It's like you don't have to wait the 3 to 5 minutes or whatever it is that Flow will take. Sometimes you can have a Flow license that is more instantaneous, but it's always going to be asynchronous versus when you submit to DBXL, it's for all intents and purposes synchronous. So it's going to generate that email immediately. The other big benefit for using email in DBXL is that you can actually design your email body in the form. So that means it's WYSIWYG. Now, if you're familiar with Power Automate, or you're familiar with SharePoint Designer, which is dead, you'll remember that they have these dialogues that pop up that allow you to create the email body. And then in order to put information in the email, like from your form, you have to do these wacky things where you have these links and whatnot, right? That's SharePoint Designer. And then Power Automate, it's even worse because you have to like string together some HTML. And it's just, I mean, Misty, you know this, it's not a happy experience, right? It's like,
correct.
So now you're like wondering, well, where is it in DBXL that you do this? Well, right. So in DBXL, you just say, look, I want the view body. Go up there a little bit, Joanne, where it says body, and just select the view. So you can actually just select a view on the right there. Sorry, I'm just playing backseat driver. Down below a little bit where it says body. Yeah, so you just select your view here. And typically what you want to do is have an email view that has a bunch of different sections depending on the workflow status, and then the sections just hide show. So it's going to take that view and it's going to render it. And the beauty of this is that you can just go into the form and drag and drop fields. You don't need to do this weird linking thing in SharePoint Designer or this HTML editing. It's WYSIWYG. You know, it's what you see is what you get. So highly recommend you look at this. Now, the major thing that DBXL did not have when we did the webinar a year ago, comparing it to Power Automate, was it didn't have reminders. And that's exactly why we added them, because you know, for Power Automate, you can do reminders, and now we can do those in DBXL. So they're really the benefit of using DBXL, of course, or the Power Automate, is that if you don't have DBXL, you got to use something, right? And Power Automate is there for you if you're on SharePoint Online. But for those of you who do have DBXL, this is a nice way to do that. Did you just configure email?
Yeah.
Did it actually?
I do.
That was so fast, Joanne. That was amazing.
Trying to check my email here.
I can't believe you just decided to did it send it? You have to hit send receive or something.
Yeah, I'm checking.
So as you can see there, she didn't configure the email view to be anything special. Typically, you'd want to put a link on it, a link on the view, so that you can click on open the form. And we've done lots of webinars on this, lots of training on it. But go to send receive and hit.
Yeah,
you got it. That's amazing, Joanne. Yeah. And she even added the PDF. You added a PDF, so you rendered the PDF in DBXL or in the form?
did.
Okay, so that's the other thing I need to mention here. And I know, Joe, you're using this, but you can render PDFs in DBXL as well. Now, well, why wouldn't you use Forms Viewers QRules command, you know, render for that? You can do either. If you want the user to quickly get a pop-up in their browser showing them the PDF, which is very useful. We do this for a lot of our forms. Then you're going to want to use the render command in Forms Viewer, right? And then you can either have it pop up a new window, or you can render it in the background and attach it to the form, or you can render it in the background and save it to a library. So we've done lots of webinars on different ways to render on the client side. What Joanne was just showing you is that you can actually generate a PDF as part of the email. And you know, that's really useful too, because let's say you have one of these external customers, they've got a fire and forget form where they fill something out like a request, and you want to let them submit it, but they're not going to be able to read it because they don't have access to your system and they're logging in anonymously. Well, in that situation, you do want to give them a receipt. Yes, we've heard you, you know, and typically what you want to do is email them back saying, yes, we got your submission, and that, and include a receipt, you know, PDF of that. Now, when you do this, if you go back to the PDF for a second, Joanne, you're going to want to make sure that that view that you're rendering does not have these boxes on it. So when you're creating your email views, yeah, let's open that up for a second. You can see that both in the email and in the PDF, you've got all these boxes. So this is not beautiful at all. This is ugly. So you want to make sure you use calculated values and do a bunch of other tricks so that you don't have this kind of form. It doesn't look like a form. It looks like an actual document. Okay, way too much information. But any questions at this point? We should actually go around the table here and just ask people for their feedback. And let's, I guess Emma and Nicole, we should ask you first, because you guys are like right on the precipice of doing this.
For questions or just our experience with the demo?
Yay, nay. I mean,
well, I would say so far it's been very easy to follow. Nicole and I were actually chatting in the background while you were walking through the steps here, and we're saying to ourselves, wow, it's overwhelming to see it all completed, but seeing it step by step, it's actually much more straightforward than we initially thought. So I'm thinking that this is something that will be it'll be pretty easy for us to implement this in a couple of other forms that we've been looking at. So we're very, very heavily rely on storing data in a database, in SQL databases. So I in particular have been a big driving force for pushing for a lot of our forms to use the database. So I'm
Yeah.
very, very excited that it's going to be this easy to implement. I think I'll get a lot more buy-in when people realize it's not difficult.
Yeah. One really random comment to mention here, I just thought of is, we mentioned this document history is turned on by default. People love this, right? Because you can go back and see every single time anything was submitted. You can even go into DBXL and look at the statistics. So even if they didn't submit a form, we keep statistics on whoever opened it. Now, if you're using a DBXL key and not the user's login, then you'll just see that that key was used to open the form. But you can create keys for every user, and then you'd know exactly, even if they're on the internet, who opened it. But sometimes this history can become very large. So you can have a database that just expands, and you're wondering, well, why is the database 500 gigabytes now? Well, it's because we're storing videos in our forms, and we've got a gazillion forms. And, you know, because when you start logging and doing transaction logs, it generates a lot of extra, it requires a lot of extra space to do that. So just keep that in the back of your mind. If you see the transaction log is growing very exponentially, then you may want to turn off document history, or you may want to reduce what you're storing in your forms and actually use one of these other best practices, which is to take the attachments and whatnot out of your forms and make them links. We should probably ask Caroline for some feedback next, because she's got DBXL as well. Caroline, any thumbs up, thumbs down, any comments here?
Well, I've been using DBXL for a long time, and my production environment is still the much older DBXL. And so I'm just now starting to migrate forms over to this newer DBXL, and I thought I knew everything about DBXL, but I learned something today.
Because you were using it mainly for Active Directory, right? I mean, you were using the old school approach of designing the forms from the database schema, right?
Yeah, well, I do have a few forms that do that, but I also just needed DBXL to push data to databases.
Okay, gotcha.
And the only reason my production environment has that older version is because I've just been too busy to migrate everything over to the newer version, but I'm getting there now.
Cool. Joanne, we should mention this one more thing that's really important, which is this document migration tool. Can you go to the InfoPath dev page and show them the latest version of that? So if you do have a lot of, you're like wondering, well, I really want to get all my data in the database, and now I know how to add the submit to new forms, but what about the old data? I've got all this old data, you've been storing it in archive libraries, for example, because that's the only way you could get around the SharePoint limit. Well, you can actually use this migration tool, even though the new version of DBXL is 3.4, this works with it just fine. We don't upgrade the versions every time we upgrade DBXL for the migration tool. Now, this is a separate Windows little app here, old school Windows app, that allows you to bulk import documents. And you can see there's a bunch of tabs here. We have documentation on this, and this is just an FYI. There's a tool out there. You're not going to want to, well, there's no other way to get the data in. And every time you do this import, it's going to shred everything on import. So this is, once you get the database mapping set up and you're pretty happy with the way the documents are submitting, go ahead and import all your old documents, because then you'll be able to run reports on them in one centralized location. You won't have to worry about managing a mass of archive libraries. So, and I know this came up recently. I think Missy Lindsay was asking about this. So that's why it came to mind here, is that this is a really important tool that goes with DBXL. We use it for lots of things. Like if you're moving from one place to another, you can export and import, but you can also do things like other operations. Let's show them other operations, Joanne. And there's a command on here. Well, reshred's the default. So when you have a change in your database and you're like, well, I just realized I needed 4 extra fields in my database, and so you add the mapping. That's easy. You don't have to change the form, right? That's the benefit of the web services. You just go into the web service mapping. You just add those 4 columns to your database. Then you add the mapping. As long as you have the fields in the form already, you don't have to change the form template. But what about all those forms that were previously submitted? Well, here you go. You need to reshred them. And you can reshred all the documents by clicking this button. Now this will kind of batch go through and just ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. It may take an hour if you've got 60,000 or more items. It tends to run about 1,000 a second. No, maybe it's slower than that. I don't know how fast it is, but depending on your internet connection as well, you'll want to probably run this from the server. And it's running, I think it's running the command on the server. So it's the import requires that you have the documents locally when you import them. But when you're running the reshred, I don't think you have to worry about that because they're all in the database already. You're just reshredding them to have that new 4 columns or whatever it is populate from those old forms. Now you can also reshred, as we saw earlier, from the DBXL UI. The problem with that is it'll time out, because the browser will time out. So it's only good for a couple hundred items. I've seen people do 1,000 from the UI, but when you have the timeout, you need to go and use this tool because this tool will not time out. Misty, any comments or feedback on this lab? Alex, you there?
I'm here. Don't know where Misty went though.
She's quite busy giving us some fire.
Oh yeah, she's always doing that.
Does this make sense to you? I just want to make sure because I know you're going to be in this big time.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to working with Misty more about this. And like I said before, I'm very new to this, so I'm just trying to soak up as much information as I can. But yeah, it seems fairly straightforward and easy to use. So I'm.
Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any comments or questions at this point before we move on? You skipped lab 3, right, Joanne? Because I jumped on the call.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll do lab 3.
I'll continue lurking. I'll try to be more quiet now because I know it's getting late there, and we need to. I know you guys started late, but it's want to make sure that we end on time, and we've only got 40 minutes left. So you've got 2 labs to go, right?
Just 1 lab, and
okay.
The other is a bonus lab.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so next lab is adding glass signatures to your form. So, Yesha, are you ready to demo the lab? Or give a brief description?
Yes. All right.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. All right. So for lab 3, we are actually going to show you how to implement the glass signature in your forms and just technically being able to input your signature to your form. So let me go and quickly show you that in our sample form here. And let me go and share my screen. Let me know if you can see it, Joanne.
Oh, I'm muted. Yeah, I see your screen.
Okay, great. So let me open this end form here. And actually, if you click this sign this form button, you can add a signature, clear it out, or add another one and capture that signature. And let's go and fill this up first before I try to submit it. And just input random numbers, say Philippines, and I won't be attaching a file, and just click this and click submit. And if we actually look into our form library and actually open the form that we just submitted, it will show us the signature that I recently added to the form. So this is what we're going to do in the lab 3, and we will go through this step by step so that if you ever need it to your forms, you can easily add the glass signature feature. So let's go ahead and open our package, which is included. Again, you can download that in our course directory. So go ahead and open the starter form. And in our starter form, we are actually going to add first the resource files that we need. So go to go to data and click resource files. So if we click the add button and if you go to the package that we provided, you can actually see a resource files here, a folder, and here are the files that we are going to need for the glass signature to work in our form. So we are going to add these three first, and I will show the signature config later on, but let's go ahead and add the first three files. So signature CSS and also the signature JS. So once that's added into your forms, we actually want these to be loaded upon opening our form in Forms Viewer. So let's go ahead and click our Home tab and select Manage Rules. And I've already added here our Qdabra rules secondary data source. And if you actually click the finish loading node, we have here a load resources rule already for our existing CSS task for the patient consent form. And we will actually add the load resource command for those three resource files that we just added into this form. So let's go ahead and add those by clicking the set a fields value. And for the form to load, we will call the command from Qdabra rules and state here load resource. And for the name parameter, we are just going to include or indicate the name of the resource file. So I already have that here. So let me just copy paste that. So let's add those three files. Again, let's repeat those steps. Let's call the command. Command from Qdabra rules. And I will just copy paste this. Should load the signature JavaScript file. And then for the last file, it should load the signature CSS. Okay. Now that we have done that, we are now going to add a new section to our form here in the view. So for us to be able to add the signature. And to do that, let's go ahead and add a section first. So go to your controls and just look for the containers category here and click section. Now it will actually create a new group, and we're just going to change the binding to this. Since we already have a signature section, I'll just bind it there and just remove this group folder that was just created. And once you've done that, the next thing that we are going to do is add a screen tip to this section. So later I will show you why we need this, but let's go ahead and add a signature, my signature screen tip here for this section because we will be needing that later on. So let me click apply and click OK. Now that we've added a signature section here, we will be adding now the signature field. So to do that, go back to your controls and expand it. And let's select the picture. Now you will see this pop up, and just select the included in the form option and click OK. And it will instantly be added to the signature section group because we added it inside that section. And let's just rename this to signature. Click OK, and I'll just change a few properties here. It's a bit small, so I'll change the height to 100 pixels and the width to 100% and click apply. Once that is done, let me just remove these added spaces And let's go ahead and save this. And I'll just name this Blast Signature Demo. And I will be uploading this to our Forms Viewer app. And here we go. Upload a new template. And I'll look for that glass signature demo that I just created. Here we go. And click upload. So the next thing that we are actually going to do is to get the control ID of the section that we just created. If you recall, we added a screen tip called and indicated my signature. So we are actually going to need that for us to allocate the control ID of that section, because we are going to be needing that later on. So to um, to find that control ID, I think the easiest way is to upload it to Forms Viewer and just place your cursor here at the picture control that we just added and right click and click inspect. And then let me just minimize this. And if you actually look into our elements, this is showing the source code of that picture control. If you actually see here, the title states click here to insert a picture, which is actually displayed here. So that just means this is the div class of that picture control. But we are actually going to need the ID of the section. So if you actually move to the top, you see here again a div. And if you look at the class, you will see here the my signature. So this is what we'll be needing. And you look for the control ID, which is control 71. And just copy that and place it to your notepad. Since now that we have the control ID, let's go and go back to our package and open our resource files. Now we have your signature config, which we will be updating. So you can actually edit this with Notepad++. And what you will be updating is the placeholder ID. So this is where we are going to indicate the control ID of the section that we just added in our form. And then the destination path should be the X path of our signature field. So for us to get the X path of the signature field, let's go back to our form and click our picture control, right click the signature and copy the X path. Once you copied it, you just paste it into the destination path. And you actually want to remember this button ID. So let me just copy that and paste it here. We will be needing that later on. And then just save that signature config XML. So once we've updated the signature config XML, now we can add it to our form. So let's go back to our form and we will just redo the steps that we did at the first part of this tab. So go to data and click resource files. Let's go ahead and add that signature config XML. And from here, we are actually going to add a data connection for that signature XML. So to do that, just click the data connections and select add. Now we want to retrieve the data and click next. And select the XML document because it is an XML document. And since we've added that to our resource files, just click the resource files button and locate the signature config XML. Once that's done, just click next and click finish and click close. All right, now that we've added that data connection, the last thing that we are going to do, second to the last, sorry, is we want this to be hidden if there are no signature inputted. So let's go ahead and add a formatting rule in our signature field. So I'll just name this hide, and for the condition, I'll just state if the signature is blank, then I want to hide this control. And then lastly, we are actually going to add the button where you will be clicking for you to sign the form. So go back to the home tab and expand your controls. From there, you will click button and right click that button, and I just want the label to show sign this form. And if you recall, in our signature config XML, we have here a button ID. So we will be needing this and adding it as an ID here in our button. And I'll just copy paste that and click apply. So that's it. That's how you will actually add the signature, the glass signature feature to your forms. I'll just remove this this calculated value here. We won't be needing that anymore, and I'll be saving this demo form and re-uploading it. And I'll just update this and click open form. And if we try to click to sign this form, it will open it, and you can draw your you can input your signature, capture that, or you can input another signature, clear that out, another one, you want to capture that. So that's how you can add a signature to your form. So hopefully you can use this feature, and hopefully it helps you.
Actually, a quick question on this. On this other, I saw how you created the sign this form button, but where are the other buttons defined? If you click, are those in one of the JavaScript files that you added?
Yeah, it's included in the JavaScript file. So you will only be needing one button here, and you just be adding the button ID for those to show.
It looks like it's also taller than 100 pixels. Or
Yeah,
is
we can actually lower that down. I just did 100. If you recall,
I see it was 100.
I added the height.
I gotcha. Okay.
So you can actually resize it to the height and the width for this. So yeah.
But when you sign it, if you click sign again, it's actually larger than there's a default here. It looks like it's more than 100 pixels. But so what is that? What is that default? Is that 200? You see how it's taller. Then after you click capture, it shrinks down. What is it? It looks like it's about 200.
It may be. We can actually. Do you want me to?
Well, it might be interesting to show them where that is, because that's hidden in the background.
Yeah, that is hidden in the background. We can try updating the height here for the pixel.
Is it in the JavaScript file where the it must be, right, where those other buttons are defined?
It must be, yes.
Can you show us what's in that? I'm just kind of curious myself. I know that we've done this many times before, but it's not in there. So go to the other file. Okay, it must be in here. And this is one of the first. That's line top. Yeah, this is one of the first extensions that we built for Forms here. And one thing that's really neat is this technique shows you how you can add any JavaScript extension now, and easily package it up for adding it to new forms. So if you've got your own extensions that you want to add, then you can actually, maybe that's the ratio. We have to ask Jimmy.
Yeah, maybe
the one that created it. But the point is that you can extend your forms with JavaScript and CSS and add new features that nobody else that you want to add to your form. So it creates a much more extensible framework than we had with InfoPath. Well, it's more modern because it's using JavaScript. And I don't know if anyone remembers back to 2003, but in 2003, we actually supported JavaScript in InfoPath, and then they took it out in 2007 and required that you write .NET, code behind. And so, but now we're back to JavaScript. Okay, that was great, Yesha. That was awesome. Any questions for Yesha?
I just want to add some comments to Patrick, because the original documentation that we have for the glass signature is instructing form designers to export to source files in order to get the control ID. So we'd want to eliminate that step because we don't want users to be looking into the source file, right? So it's really good to see that Yesha discovered this technique where she is getting the control ID from Chrome DevTools. Yeah, it was really cool to know that you can easily get the ID from there and not have to export everything to source files and then Control F and then find the sections. It's really difficult.
That's
for
great,
most
Yesha. I didn't
beginners.
realize that extra value that you're adding. That's great. Way to go. So let's see, who is interested in glass signatures? Raise your hand. I don't know if we have the ability to raise hands, but we're down to 10 participants. So we've lost a few people. I think there's meetings going on and we're at the end of, almost at the end of the class. Do you have a slide, Joanne, on takeaways, or are we done with all the labs? Are we going to do the takeaway thing and share
we have some question and answer. But before that, let me just mention that we have a bonus lab for the Authy XTP. So would you like to talk about this for a bit, Patrick? We're not doing the demo, but it's, if they want to do it.
Yeah, we should talk about it. Let's actually, do you want to go into the lab for it and just like open it up, and then I can quickly mention a few things. I mean, or you could. But I think at a high level, just to finish out the signature thing, some of you may be wondering, well, we don't want glass signatures. We want DocuSign or something else like that. So we've done webinars on how to integrate with DocuSign in the past. It's just a web service. So you just PDF your form and send it off to DocuSign. You can also do electronic signatures. Electronic signatures are things like pins where you type in a number, and you can even extend it with Authy to make that pin generated number that is sent to their phone, and therefore more secure, to verify who they are. And that's what we're going to be showing next, is that Authy integration. But we also should mention digital signatures. So digital signatures was a feature that InfoPath added mainly for the CFR 21 Part 11 compliance, which is a FDA regulated document. The government has told all these companies like Pfizer and others that you must have a process where you're capturing signatures of people, and those signatures have to be digital. So in the early days of InfoPath, we added this feature, digital signatures, to them. And it's very clever what it does. The digital signature actually takes a picture of the form, prints it, and then it hashes, it takes the image of the picture, and it uses a checksum, or it uses a hash to actually take the key of the person who's signing it. They have to have a digital certificate. It takes the key for that, and it hashes it together, and it creates this thing that locks the document so that it prevents tampering. Now, electronic signatures, glass signatures don't do that, right? If you're using DocuSign, DocuSign doesn't do that. DocuSign bought a company called Cosign, which actually does that using hardware. But because it's such a laborious process to set up, very few people use digital signatures. However, you can do them. And we were actually adding this support to FormsViewer this summer. So one of the new features coming in 6.2 or whatever is going to be the support for these really super hardcore, digitally, certified, certificate-based signatures that cannot be tampered with. Now, for all intents and purposes, if you're submitting to DBXL and you're locking everything up, then tampering is very, very hard. But there's even yet another level, which is this digital signature-based locking that we're going to be implementing for those scenarios. And we've got several customers who have been waiting for this feature. And if you're interested in that feature, please let me know. It is slated to be in the next release of Forms Viewer, probably no later than September. But if you need it faster, let me know, because we could probably fast track it for you. Now, this bonus lab, we should actually show the demo of this, Joanne. Do we have the demo of the of Authy that we can link to an anonymous form that we can give people? Was
Yeah.
the training form did that, right?
We actually have a demo, and I can quickly show you
Hey,
the Authy.
Great.
All right. So so for the Authy, this is for you to for your external users to be able to access the forms, and for you to know who are those people accessing it. So let me go ahead and share my screen once more and show you how the Authy works. Okay, let me know if you are seeing my screen.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. So let me open our end form here. And if you actually open the form, since we tackled the get user yesterday, I already have here my picture, my full name, and my email address. But if you click the open form anonymous, this just means that this can be accessed externally, and you can log in or sign up. So I actually don't have an account yet, so let me sign up first and just add a few details here.
For those of you watching, you can add your own logo at the top. We've added ours. We've also added the Authy logo at the bottom. You can get rid of that. The benefit of using an Authy, which is actually an app that you install on your cell phone, versus the SMS text, which is also supported for those who don't have the app installed. The benefit of the Authy app is that it's a server-generated number, kind of like these. If you have an RSA token, for your bank access or something like that, you've got this little fob that has this rotating number on it. That's kind of what it does. It has a 20-second rotation for the Authy app to generate these new numbers. And that's much more secure than using SMS because it's generated on the server. But you can do the text me a code here too, and then have it automatically send you a code. Now, if you do text me a code, and somebody is hacking your browser, they could see that code coming across the wire because the form is actually texting the code. It's generating it and it's texting it via Twilio to the form. What Yesha just entered was she's got the Authy app installed and she just entered the 7 digits that it generates. And the reason why that's more secure is that's not hackable from the browser. So the SMS text is hackable, but it would require somebody, to actually be on your browser and to be going in to inspect it and looking at the code. So it's a pretty high bar. So for all intents and purposes, it's secure enough. But if you really want hardcore security, you have to have people, install that Authy app. And you could use your own app. You don't need to use Authy, but Twilio integrates with Authy out of the box.
Yeah, thanks for that, Patrick. So as you can see earlier on, I was able to sign up and open the form. Right now, let's try logging in. So it states here that I could just enter my last name and just the 4781, my last 4 digits of my phone number, and just click log in. And again, this will ask me for an Authy code, or actually I can text me a code if I don't have an Authy app. And currently right now I received an alert for the code. So I'll just be typing that 8444.
Now, one other thing to mention here is that even though we've said this is for external users, this is a clever technique if you want to allow more access to your 365 site and you don't want to pay for the licenses. So let's say you have some users that are not going to be heavy users. They're just going to need to submit some forms from time to time. You could add this as a technique for extending your user base on 365 without having to pay for 365 licenses. And I don't know why more companies haven't figured this out, but you don't really need a password anymore or a login because you've got a phone and that's doing it for you. And so I think in the future, Microsoft's going to have a licensing challenge around this because, people can self-authenticate with their phones and with SMS text codes, and they don't need to actually have a login. I don't know how they're going to prevent it. And so that we're using this because we have this ability from the app, FormsViewer, to actually submit stuff app-only mode, right? So it's actually submitting it using the app's token. And because of that, we're able to circumvent this user check, but because we're also adding the Twilio stuff to it, we have authenticated the user when they fill out the form, right? So it is, for all intents and purposes, it is secure because we verified that the cat wants out. Sorry, you can hear that in the background. We verify that the user actually is who they are with their phone, and the phone has biometric. And very secure because no passwords are needed. So you can make this a time sensitive thing where you send them a link in email and they have to click on it within a certain amount of time to get access to the form. So you could even think of another extension to this where you text them a link, and if they click on the link from text within 60 seconds, then you don't even bother to authenticate them because it must be them. It'd be impossible for them to forward that text to somebody else within that time period. Maybe you make it 15 seconds or 30 seconds, but you can even automate this even further to not require them to type in a number using text links that expire. Okay, that's it for me. Sorry, Aisha.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, as Patrick mentioned, this is more secure for you. This is for you to secure your forms more. So we actually don't have time to show you the step by step on how to apply the Authy to your forms, but if you check out the package that that you can actually download in the course directory, we have there instructions on how to apply the Authy XTP, and we also have your prerequisites that you will be needing to do, and we also have documents for that included in the package. So you can go. Sorry.
Once they get the hang of it, though, it's like 15 minutes or 20
Yeah,
minutes, right?
it's actually it won't take you long. Yeah, it'll be easy for you to apply to your forms. So this goes through a step-by-step process. It's very detailed on what you need to add to your forms. So hopefully you can go through this, and it's just long because of the screenshots, but it will just take you minutes to add the Authy XDP.
Oh, that's awesome. Let's go back and ask our remaining attendees for their takeaway for the day. Do we have a slide to share the takeaway? I don't know. If you can think of one thing that you learned today or saw today that you definitely want to we could quiz them.
Yeah, we actually have a review questions.
Yeah, we should do this tomorrow morning because we're running out of time. But let's just quickly go around let's just quickly go around the table and ask people for their main takeaway for the day to share what wowed them, or nothing if nothing wowed them, and they have some feedback for us.
All right.
So let's see. Should we go in reverse order this time? Should I just go with? I don't know if Joe's got. Is Joe still there? No, Joe's off. Nicole, did you have any thing you wanted to share with everyone before? I guess you've logged out now, or you're there. Okay.
I'm still here.
Cool.
I really like DBXL. Like, we're really excited about that. But one thing that we were using a lot is saving attachments, and I did not realize about the multi-drop. So the register multi-drop is something that I think that we can use immediately. We actually just designed a form that allows multiple for member files, and I think it's going to be useful.
Did we demo the drag and drop, Joanne?
Yeah, we demoed it
Okay,
in
cool.
lab 2, safe to share.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about. Okay, I wasn't here for that, but yeah, that's a really cool control. We love that.
Yeah.
Let's see, Alex, did you want to go next? Do you have any takeaway to share with everyone else? Something that you thought was cool?
Nothing comes to mind really.
Oh my gosh, you're so boring.
Sorry.
It's okay. Anything we
yeah.
should do differently tomorrow? I mean, should we go slower, go faster? Should we send you free chocolate or something? I mean, what
Hey,
do we
that'd
need?
be cool. You know, you're doing great. I'm just I've been trying to follow along. Just 3 hours is a little hard to follow along the whole time.
gotcha.
I'd say like a little more interaction would be nice, just to
Okay.
keep me in the game here. But yeah, like I said before, I mean, this is all interesting to me. So I'll be reviewing the VOD later, and anything I missed, I'll try to take notes about, and hopefully tomorrow I'll have some more.
Well, we always have this conundrum of like trying to show you everything that's possible versus, spending a lot of time having you guys do it while we're in the class.
Right.
And we've always taken the approach of trying to cover as much ground as possible because we only do the training twice a year. And anyway, I appreciate your understanding.
Yeah, of course, I understand.
Let's see, and if you've got the labs, I mean, if you want to get, I mean, if you're feeling a bit like, I don't know what's the right word, you're getting a little bit like, I don't know, like tired of just listening to us. I think that doing the labs first, right, trying on your own before the actual class, and then coming to class with that with the experience of frustration of not being able to do it, or the success will probably make it more engaging. I don't know. We could make the class longer too, but then we got the challenge of impacting even more of your day. So thanks for that feedback, though. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate all you guys are doing, and I will do that tomorrow.
Hey, Caroline, anything for us?
Well, I also like the drag and drop feature. I didn't even know that existed, and I'm going to put that to use right away.
Yay, yay. Two votes for the drag and drop. Catherine, do you want to make that 3?
Yes, actually, that is the thing that I can probably implement straight away. It's also just really interesting to find out more about DBXL, because that's something we're kind of thinking about, maybe possibly for developing our ethics system. So I've still got loads of questions about how we might actually use it, but I felt like I got more of an overview of what it actually is and does, which is
that's
very
great.
useful.
Thanks for being here during your dinner hour. I appreciate it. Great to have you here. So let's see, and we've got Emma. I don't want to forget you. Emma.
Hello. Like Nicole, I was really interested in the DBXL components of this. Nicole and myself have actually made use of, I believe, almost everything else that we demoed here. We, of course, don't use Authy. We don't have any external forms, and we're on-prem, so our validation for users comes through Active Directory. But we have created a form using Glass Signature, and we did introduce that to one of the departments, so we're fairly hopeful that people will get more used to that. We're a very heavy user of DocuSign, though, so I don't know how many people we're going to be able to convert, but for some forms that don't really require our members to sign them, we're very interested in using Glass Signature because it's much easier.
So you can have the form also, like I said, we did this webinar on DocuSign integration, so you can have forms here, generate PDF and DocuSign away.
Well, we were kind of hoping to only have to generate the PDF once. And you spoke of it earlier, but unfortunately, concerning how many documents we generate daily, space is kind of at a premium for the forms and things like that. And we can't trust every user to, after they sign it, get rid of the PDF that was generated so that they could sign it. So to kind of get around that, for some of the forms that we don't really require sending to somebody else to sign, we've been looking into Glass Signature to get around that.
Awesome. Hey, Gwen, you weren't here yesterday, I don't think, but it's great to have you here. Did you have any comments to add? How's the training for you? I'm sorry if I can't pronounce your name correctly. I don't know if you have audio or not, but I think you're our final attendee feedback question person. So it sounds like you don't have audio or not, but thanks for being here. And we look forward to having everyone tomorrow. And I want to just thank Joanne and Yesha once again for this amazing course that they've prepared for us this week. And make sure you guys get enough sleep, okay? Sleep in. Let's talk again tomorrow. I look forward to saying hello again tomorrow and getting even more wowed with your demos, Yesha and Joanne. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Have a good day.
Goodbye.